thank you again for coming on out. My name is Jeremy, and I lead up the Asian Global Network here in our Los Angeles office. We do events revolving around professional development, community service, and this week we're focusing on race affairs. So this talk today is part of a series of different events that we're hosting. So if you want to find out more about what it means to be AAPI, please visit our Go link, go/AAPI. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start off our panel today. We have with us today Asian AF, or Asian as...
Do we, can we not swear?
Yes, you can. Yes, it's fine.
I don't know who that gentleman is, but he's
That's
like, we
Google.
can swear.
That's
It's already
Google right
Google.
there. Oh, okay.
You guys totally can, but Jeremy's at work.
Oh.
For free, you are my guest, so
Okay.
I don't need a censor.
In fact, it's confirmed.
So I'm going to read a brief intro. So Asian AF is the hit Asian American variety show based in Los Angeles and features exclusively Asian American performers. The group made headlines earlier this year for their efforts to fight against damaging Asian stereotypes through humor, and their viral t-shirt poking fun of Hollywood whitewashing, pictured right there. Join us right now for this panel, and we'll talk about Asian representation in media and entertainment. So what we'll do right now is I'd love to get some intros. Please introduce yourself, your name, give us a little bit of background, and what brought you to comedy.
Hi, I'm Zac Oyama. I work at College Humor as a writer and actor there and make videos for them. What brought me to comedy? I guess, I don't know, I just have always enjoyed it and used it as a way to just like, as you know, from a young age, trying to like win over friends by trying to be funny or whatever. And yeah, that's where it probably started.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Choi. I'm the creator of Asian AF and also another comedy show at the UCB Theater called Scarlett Johansson Presents. I got into comedy a few years ago after watching an improv show, and yeah, that's basically it. I saw improv and I fell in love with it, and then that's what brought me here.
Hi everybody, my name is Keiko Agena, and I'm an actress. I'm a co-host of Asian AF, and I've been acting for a long time, and some of the roles are comedic or dramedies or things like that. I was on a show called Gilmore Girls for 7 years, and then I did their reboot of that. And I guess if we're talking about strictly comedy, I came into it because I love to laugh and I'm obsessed with it, and improv is like some of the best entertainment I've ever experienced. It's the thing that makes me laugh the hardest. So it's the thing that I'm the most obsessed with and trying to perfect, because I feel like it's this puzzle that never can be solved, and so it's tickling to my brain, so that's why I can never get enough of it, and I love the show.
Hi, I'm Kim Cooper, and I'm an actress as well. And I came to comedy because I grew up in Iowa. I'm adopted, and so like I grew up in a place where I didn't feel like I fit in, and I felt like, you know, I oftentimes, as a lot of people do, come to comedy. I came to comedy because I was like, oh, I need a way to figure out how to kind of cope with feeling different, and in a way like make fun of myself before other people can. And so that's how I ended up doing that. And then improv specifically, I came to because it's something where people can't tell you that who you are, what you look like, means you have to be something specific. In improv, it's all made up on the fly, so it's like, hey, right now I'm gonna be the president, and that's just how it is. The president's an Asian woman, and that's what it is. And so that's why I really like that.
Hello, my name is Kay Kaanapu. I'm originally from Northern California, a small town named Gilroy, known for garlic, so that's where I came from. I first got into comedy when I saw an improv show, like at my freshman dorm orientation, It was like short form, and I just like thought it was the coolest thing. And I was like Liz Lemon. I was like, I want to go to there. And then after that, I started writing and just continuing doing improv and pursuing comedy writing. I currently work for a TV writer / novelist.
All right, thanks everyone.
It doesn't like
All right, so my next question is directed at Will. We want to know, how did you come up with the concept for the show Asian AF?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a story because the first show before Asian AF was Scarlett Johansson Presents AAPI Heritage Month. And it was a first Asian American improv show at the UCB Theater in LA. And that happened in response to Ghost in the Shell and a lot of these other movies that have to do with whitewashing and all that good stuff. And and so the show was very successful. It was the very first Asian American themed show at the theater. And because of the huge success of that, UCB gave me a Asian AF, which is a variety show. So it features sketch, stand-up, improv, music, and different things. And that show, Asian AF, is more kind of a celebration of Asian American performers doing comedy, where it's not so much about kind of the whitewashing controversy and stuff like that. So yeah, and it started in November of 2016, and because of how successful the show has been going, we sell out shows in literally a day. So because of how successful it is, we were able to move it over to New York as well. And so in June of 2017 was the first New York Asian AF show. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just turning the mic on and off, just because I think it's me.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Glad we figured that out. So I know you mentioned Ghost in the Shell, and earlier we were talking about some news about Hellboy, and the reason why, oh, I know.
Why?
Right? So for those of you that don't know, they made some casting decisions for the reboot of the movie Hellboy, which is based on a comic book character, and there is another case of some Hollywood whitewashing. So I want to bring your attention to Keiko's shirt over here. So Scarlett and Emma and Tilda and Matt. And this shirt made a lot of headlines last year. So we wanted to know what was the response like to that? Did you get a lot of praise? Did you get any backlash? Please tell us a little bit about that story.
When the shirt was made, we made like 50 shirts. We're like trying to raise some money for the show, and it just so happened that Michelle Celine Ng, who is on 13 Reasons Why, she happened to see the shirt and wore it, and that's kind of how it kind of exploded on the internet. And the response has been, or had been, pretty positive. I think it just resonated with a lot of people. I think a lot of people were feeling frustrated with a lot of that stuff. So yeah, generally people liked it a lot, and people wear it. I see people wear it all the time. It's really cool. Yeah.
What
What were we talking
about? So now that we're all warmed up,
we stay warm.
I'm going to jump to our next question and talk about some of the challenges of being Asian in comedy, in entertainment. Could you share some of those stories, maybe some challenges you've experienced and how you've overcome them?
For me, I think I've noticed this just, well, I mean, everyone probably has an experience with this, but like a lot of Asian roles kind of, I mean, when I was growing up, less so now, but are like, the punchline is that the person's Asian. and there's very few instances of characters that are just they're just a funny person, or the role is funny and they just happen to be Asian. So that's, the first thing that comes to mind again.
I think also it's like having to be the one person to represent your ethnicity in the group. A lot of times when you're in a class or maybe put on an improv team for a theater company, you're usually the one Asian or sometimes the only one person of color. So whenever it comes to like references or fun things that you might want to talk about, you're not really pulling from your personal experiences, but you're definitely having to like default and adapt to the group's personal experiences. So a lot of times when I perform with these people or with Asian AF performers, you have kind of this relief that goes over you because you're just like, I can talk about spam musubi. I can talk about these personal things that I know in my life and not feel like I'm having to train someone to be like, it's okay, this is my experience. Or, move my comedy towards their point of view because that's their reference and that's their perspective.
In terms of comedy, yeah, I don't know. It's for me. I'm trying to think about a specific instance which is not coming to my head at the moment, but in terms of just like seeing some stuff on the page. Okay, so I just thought of something right now. There was a short sketch that someone asked me to be in, and she was like, hey, we want you to do this character. It's a comedic sketch. The only thing is, we'd like you to do a stereotypical Asian accent. And the fact that she said stereotypical Asian accent was like one thing, but I was just like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And she was like, oh, okay, let me talk to my director and I'll call you back. And so she calls me back like 10 minutes later and she's like, hey, talk to my director. We talked about it and we're not gonna do an Asian accent. Realize that it didn't take away from any of the comedy, so you could just do it. And I was like, cool, I hope you learned something. You know what I mean? Because it's like, there's the layer of the comedy itself in the words, and then they wanted to just put up another act, like the accent aspect of it to heighten it, I guess, but it doesn't do anything for it. It actually makes it worse in a sense. So I was pretty proud of myself to kind of stand up to that, even though it was just a quick, short sketch, but like that is kind of essentially what a lot of people who are in the industry are dealing with, when it comes to accents and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of the things that I get sent out for are specifically like something dash ethnic. It's like friend dash ethnic, not just friend, and yeah, that like is a hard, weird thing because you're like, well, I'm more than ethnic. I can just be a friend too, and I think that especially in Hollywood, something that's interesting that I've noticed too is like also a lot of things that I get sent out for, they like specifically are looking for an Asian person or an ethnic person, but then the lead of that show is still a white person, and so that like propagates this idea that like people of color or Asian people like only populate a world that like centers around white people, and so sometimes that just feels like a hard thing to be having to consider, like when you go on an audition or when you get sent on an audition, and like if you're like get it and you're like, oh thank God they're not asking me to do an accent, which I'm also very uncomfortable doing. I'm from Iowa, my parents are white. I have a very Midwestern life experience, but then on top of that it's like, oh man, yeah, that's a bummer. Just a reminder again that like this is not my world. I just am also here dash ethnic.
Yeah. Also, if you asked us to go down the line and do our Asian accents, we all suck at them too. I guarantee it.
Guaranteed.
That's part of it. I think I only can do stereotypical Asian, like not country specific. Like that shine. What are you going for, Keiko? It's not good. What are we doing? Sorry, I'm sick, so I'm gonna be asking that every 5
Keiko
minutes.
is sick, so we're happy that she's here.
Too much honesty.
Well, thanks for still joining us. And honesty always is appreciated. All right. I think that's good. Speaking of sort of these stereotypes, how do you feel that your comedy helps to address it or to help combat that issue?
I mean, we have a lot of very talented writers and performers at our show. Kay is one of the writers. And a lot of our sketches that we do actually don't have to do with race, but some of them do. And the ones that deal with race in a very smart way are the ones that I gravitate towards. And they'll address it in way I can't even really explain it, but they'll find ways to kind of flip things on its head a little bit, and yeah, I don't know. That's the stuff that I really like a lot. You know, it's not just people doing bad accents and being weird or anything like that. It's smart. It's really smart comedy. And Zac's a writer too. So.
Yeah. Oh, hi. I think you know, most of us up here do improv, and almost never it comes up in shows I do that I'm Asian. I just like to do what I think is funny, and usually almost never have to comment on it. And yeah, comedically, I think just being a funny person is what I gravitate to, trying to do. Yeah. And yeah, like talking about like, I usually won't write a sketch that has to do with being Asian unless there's like an actual point to it, like you're saying. Like, you know, a coworker wrote a sketch that was like, I forget the exact title, but it's like, am I Asian enough? And there's like this like panel talking to a guy who's like an 8th Asian, and he's like trying to figure out like, can I say the like 3 Korean phrases I know, or does that seem racist? Can I, you know, like asking sort of stereotypical questions about being Asian, just because like, you know, there is sort of like a weirdness to being half or part Asian, like what is okay? Is that question weird? What is okay? Because it is like who you are too.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to writing, just the fact that you can write a character and then not like refer to their culture or make the story about their culture or their ethnic experience, and they still can be an ethnic person. Like, I've written like a bunch of TV pilots, and whenever I table read them, I always have like 100% diverse cast. And the only time that I will change the description to put that they're actually ethnic in the description is when I send it out to readers so they know I expect a person of color to be in that part, but the actual story and dialogue has nothing to do with like their ethnicity. So for me, the whole idea is like, you can just write about people and you can just cast people. You don't have to default into like, okay, it doesn't say an ethnicity here, so they must be Caucasian.
Default Caucasian.
Yeah, my friend and I wrote a web series, and she's Black and I'm Asian, and our aim was not like to make it about that. We were like, we are women of color living in this world that we live in, so of course, some of our experiences do have to do with that. Some of the experiences in all of our lives do have to do with our experiences as Asian American people, but that's not the totality of our experiences, and that's not the totality of who we are. And I think it's really important, and that's what is also great about, like, for example, shows like Fresh Off the Boat. Like, not everything in that show is about them being Chinese immigrants. Like, there are things in that show that's just like the mom doesn't want one of the kids to eat a bunch of sugar. Like, all y'all know about that? Like, that happens to all of us. Like, that's not an exclusively, like, Asian American or Asian or immigrant or Taiwanese experience. Like, that's something that's still relatable. And I think that for me, when I write, is really, like, what I think is great is, like, you know, it is important to me to like represent for, you know, Asian American people and to share the experiences that we have, but it's also important to be like, hey, remember that thing? Sometimes you put on your pants and they don't quite fit right, right? Sometimes you can't find an outfit to wear. Sometimes you get a bad haircut too. Those are the things that make us all like people.
Yeah. At our recent show, Eugene Cordero, who was originally supposed to be here, he showed a short film that he wrote, and this short was about, he's Filipino, and it was about like this Filipino like folklore thing about like this monster that eats babies, right? And so like even that kind of stuff, and to be able to show that at Asian AF, it's like informative, but it's funny, you know, and it's like I learned something about Filipino culture that night, you know, like, and it's like, and it's just like a really cool, like I said, it's a celebration of Asian cultures and stuff. So I think that's how we combat like a stereotypical Asian, like the stereotypes when it comes to Asians in comedy. It's like the way that we're doing it is just like showing the audience like this is what is funny, and it has nothing to do with like stereotypical stuff, but it still has to do with Asian culture, which is really cool.
I love this. Oh yeah. One more thing, because as far as like combating these issues through comedy, I don't know what everybody's experience of this is, but I do know that sometimes in the past there have been Asian projects that come out, and then you feel like that maybe don't make you laugh or aren't good, and then you feel like you have to support it, and I was never good at that. I don't really like to do that, unfortunately. So that's what was fun about Asian AF, and I think that's always the goal, is that it's not, nobody gets a pass. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not gonna like it just cause it's Asian and say, oh, isn't this great, and pat each other on the back. I mean, it still has to be funny. It has to be genuinely funny. Otherwise, I don't want to be a part of it. And I think that's what I appreciate about the other people, and the UCB too. I mean, that's the reason why it's got a home at the UCB, is that the standards of UCB are very high, and that's why, you know, part of why we're there and learning and getting better, and these are people who get to perform there. So that was just important to me as far as someone coming to a project like this. And I think also it's funny because sometimes that's the first thing people think when they hear, oh, it's an Asian show. Oh, it's probably just, you know? Like you almost, yeah, that's right. That's what I used to think. That's why I used to think, oh, they probably just give a pass to a bunch of sketches that are just like, you know, only okay. And so that's why I forget that, because now it's been going for so long, and I go, no, it's great. I love the show. What was it?
All right, so I'm going to open it up to the floor for any questions you might have, but I do have one more question before I throw it out to you all. In the show particularly, what are some of your favorite jokes or sketches that have come out of it?
Ghost in the Shell, the musical,
Yeah.
where it was like you wrote it with Mike?
Yeah, I wrote it with Mike Lane and Tess Paras.
Yeah, it's pretty much Wizard of Oz, but yeah, with Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
And all these people, the Tilda and Matt and
They all make an
they all make an
appearance.
appearance. And
It's so nice of them to come down.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was right when the movie came out, and Mike, Tess, and we had not watched the movie or knew anything about the anime, so we just wrote a musical based off what we thought the movie was. And so it was about like these characters.
So close.
Yeah, it was
Amazing.
really
Oh my
accurate
God.
actually. It's these four characters, and they're looking for the ghost in the shell, and they have to take the Yellowface Road to get there. And it went over really well. But yeah, I can't say if there was any specific moment or joke
I have one.
that.
Okay. What? Oh no.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things I feel like I have seen at UCB, it was Giovanni. Shout out to Giovanni. She did a character that was one of the, what was a plate?
She was a
Yes.
She was a plate from Beauty and the Beast, from the Be Our Guest, you know, when all the plates are dancing. This is a plate. This is a plate also. So like, who's to say? Who's to say what race this plate is? But it was so funny. It didn't have nothing to do with the race at all. But it was this plate that like was like lamenting how strict and how hard it was to be a plate living in like Beauty and the Beast, and like all the training they had to go through to learn this dance. Like
Yeah.
It was a fucking
Yeah.
nut
yeah,
job.
and it
Nightmare.
was so like I had tears. It was so funny, and it was also like it had nothing at all to do with race. And Giovanni's just a very smart,
She's
funny
also a
woman.
special performer.
Yeah,
so
she's
good.
very, very good. It was amazing. Shout out to you, Giovanni.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like for me, there's so many great moments that we've had in the show, and the improv is great, and sketches and stand-up and stuff. But like for me, when I look at the totality of like the show, the thing that I like the most is the diversity amongst the Asian community that's in both the audience and on stage, because you see these performers do improv together or sketch together, and it's like East Asian, Southeast Asian, South Asian, mixed race, you know, like majority, our show features majority women, you know, and it's like such a cool experience to see that on stage and see how much diversity there is within the Asian American community. And so yeah, it's so hard for me to say which specific moment there is, but when I just look up on that stage and I see how different everyone looks, yet we're all under the same umbrella, it's like, it makes me very happy to see that. Yeah.
How many times have you guys heard the word totality in the last 2 days?
Oh, yeah.
I similarly, like, it's hard to describe improv scenes without sounding insane.
I know.
We have very fun improv shows, but to me, if I were to, it'd be like, I was a cat, and then they were eagles. You know, it doesn't translate to this conversation, but they're very fun. And like what you're saying about like the difference of like Asian experiences, like I feel like that's been like such a fun challenge and thing to figure out with these shows is like, we're all coming from such different places, and there's like maybe not as much shared language there, so to speak, that lends itself to being on the same page comedy-wise, but like that is something that we're like actively learning from and figuring out. And that's been fun.
For sure.
Awesome, thank you. What were we talking about?
What was the question?
That was a lot.
All right, let's go and open it up to the floor. Anybody have any questions? Liliana?
Yeah, I don't, do I need a mic? I mean,
Just so that
Oh,
the
the
mic's
audio, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Let's go to borrow
Does
this.
Google need to hear it?
Gmail, are you here?
Gmail.
Email when you're out.
Thanks. Thank you so much for being here. So with so much great talent and all the great writers, how does it work? Do you have like a testing lab? Or like, do you just present in front of each other all the jokes and then figure out which one's actually going into the show? How do you seed all the goodness that's going into each of the shows?
A testing lab would be cool. We should get that.
Can we be here?
Yeah, can we
Gmail?
figure out how to do that here? No, you know, actually the process is people, when it comes to sketches, they'll write their own sketches, or they have done sketches in previous shows and they'll submit it to us. Keiko and I, we are the ones that are producing, so we'll read them and we'll kind of like see if, you know, if it hits a certain standard that we like, and so that's kind of how the sketches work. With the improv, we have one improv team called Voltron, which Zac and Kim are both on, and they're all Asian American UCB performers, and that improv is made up on the fly, so there's no rehearsing there.
There's no way to know what we'll
Yeah,
say.
you never know what's going to happen, but they have that Asian AF is their monthly slot to perform. And then with stand-ups, it's usually, you know, it's people submit or people, I'll see someone, like this one kid I saw, he's a half Chinese, half black comedian, and he's still in college. And I saw him do a 3-minute open mic, and I was like, I have to get this guy on the show. It was solid, and he killed it.
Wasn't he here on his like summer break?
Yeah, he was here for summer break for college.
Too
Yeah.
young and too good, man.
But yeah, there's different kind of ways to kind of see. Some people will submit and they'll show me their stand-up set, and so I'll be like, great, I want this person, or recommendations. And then there's just other kind of like various ways of people to get onto the show, whether it's we just ask them to do a favor and be like, hey, you're a dancer, can you do this dancing thing, or whatever. So it's a little bit hodgepodgey in terms of getting a show together, but usually comes together very nicely once the night of the show happens.
And I was going to add one thing really quickly. Will is really good about reaching out to people in the Asian American community that are in the entertainment world, even if he doesn't know them. And so we've gotten, like, Margaret Cho's been on the show, and some you can talk about some. I mean, that part's been part of it too.
Yeah. Just the people who have been interested in being in the show has kind of raised the level of Asian AF, like so Margaret Cho, Sheng Wang, Aparna Sherla, Joel Kim Booster, and just so many great actors have been a part of it and want to be in the show as well, and we just haven't had the scheduling yet for them to come on.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that are in the, as soon as time permits.
Yeah,
they'll be on the show.
it's really exciting because we have like great guests lined up in future months that I can't announce just yet. But we can also announce that Ronnie Chang, who is from The Daily Show, is going to be doing stand-up at Asian AF New York next month, which is very exciting. But yeah, it's a really cool thing to see how excited everyone is, not just audience members, but also performers and kind of well-known people who want to be a part of this thing that we're doing. And we're seeing it in LA, both in LA and New York. Who Dan Lee and Alex Song are the hosts in New York and producers in New York, and they're doing a great job at kind of building that community out there too. I feel like I talked a lot.
No, that's a good question.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
So when you're coming up with humor, how do you decide sort of what is allowed? Because whenever you make a joke, there's obviously a tension between making people feel a little bit uncomfortable, but then at the same time you don't want to cross the line, wherever that is. So like as an Asian person, sometimes I'll tell a joke in front of my white friends, and then I'll say, wait, but I don't want you to think that you're allowed to say that in front of Asian people. So, if you don't know them especially. So how do you balance that?
She's ready. Kim is ready.
No, I want to share from my own experience. Because I have run into that a lot in my life too, and like I mentioned before, like a lot of how I ended up coming to comedy when I was younger was like making jokes about being Asian and at the expense of my being Asian, which like as an adult I'm like, hey man, wish you had done that. But I think it is hard sometimes for people to know that it's like, oh yeah, you can't do that too. But for us, like, and I'll only speak for myself here, in our adult lives, like, I was at a show recently, we have the unique experience that most of the time our audience is like a lot of Asian people, a lot of Asian American people. And so that gives us, I think, a luxury that we don't have all the time to do stuff that feels like it would maybe not hit if it was a different crowd. We did a show recently, all Asian people, and the suggestion was banana, which like, at least in my experience, is something people call an East Asian person when they are yellow on the outside and white on the inside. And I was like, when we got the suggestion, I was like, banana. And then I was like, if I do this right now, it might alienate the audience who's mostly white. And I was like, I don't want them to feel like they messed up or that they said, because they did, I'm sure that person, whoever suggested that, didn't mean it as like, you're a banana. They were just like, I love bananas. This is my favorite fruit. Snack, good, healthy for you. Love potassium. But it was like one of those situations where I was like, not exactly like, oh, making sure that they can't say that as well, but like making sure that like I didn't want to like alienate people in that moment. So I was like, I want you guys to still like laugh and like have a good time at this improv show, and not feel like you're being chastised for that. That was like a really interesting thing.
I feel like, yeah, like as far as like making a joke about myself, I can do that. And like, I usually don't, but like if there's like, if something comes up where it's like, you know, people want to get food or something, and I'm like, I want to get ramen or whatever, and like, so there's a joke there, maybe I'll make it. But if I'm in a situation where it's like, we're trying to get like, we're trying to parse out if like a white person can make the joke at me, the answer's almost always no. And so like, they should, it's not really on you, they should know that. It should be obvious. And I think people can do a better job of calling people out on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just be really mean to your friends.
Your friend.
Yeah.
That's the best advice of the day.
Is that how we're wrapping up?
Alienate your friend.
So my question is around content created by people of color. What are some of your recommendations for podcasts, movies, film, comedy that you particularly like that are created by people of color?
I'll think about this.
College humor doc.
The guy called Zac Oyama. He loves ramen. Needs help with his Gmail.
I mean, this is just, and no one is. This is a kind of an obvious one. I used to work on the show Key and Peele, and I felt like they're the ways in which they were able to comment on race and not comment on it, and like the amount of material they were able to mine from specific, you know, racially charged scenarios, I found very inspiring for sketch comedy, and have since been trying to apply it when I can.
In terms of podcasts, there's a podcast collective called the Potluck Podcast, which is maybe like 8 or 10 Asian American hosted podcasts that you know cover a range of different topics. Keiko and I have a podcast that is on a part of that, and yeah, if you check that out, there's just a lot of different podcasts that you could see that have Asian American hosts, which I think in the podcast world it's pretty white dominated, at least the popular ones are. So it's just one resource. I'm sure there are also others, but that's just one resource that people can look up. Potluck Podcast, that's what it's called.
This is not controversial or helpful at all, but this is honest. So you think you can dance? It's like, what? It's like one of my favorite shows. I watch it all the time. There's so many freaking Asian people on that show right now. There's Lex Ishimoto, there's Dassy, there's Koine, there's Marco, there's it's like half Asian, I think. And then there's other diversity on there too. Damn, I love dance. Oh, you already have
I would say my favorite ones are very obvious and not controversial at all. Also, I think that Aziz Ansari is a genius. I think that Minnie Kaling is a genius. I think that Ali Wong is a genius. And I think it's really important when people, like, I'm so annoying. Whenever my friends bring up one of those people, I'm like, yeah, and they're Asian. Like, note. It's not like about them being Asian, but like note that like you, this is like me talking to like a white person, like note that you as a white person still like their comedy, and sometimes it is. This is the same thing I said before. Like sometimes like I think Aziz does a really good job of this, like, you know, talks about like being Muslim and like his experiences like with his parents, like finding out that he eats bacon and eats pork and stuff like that, but then also being like, hey, I like this girl, she doesn't like me back, or she's a boyfriend, that's hard, and like using those as like opportunities to like learn, and like, yeah, whenever people are like, well, Ali Wong's stand-up special is so funny, I'm like, yeah, it's great how she could talk about like, you know, her experiences as an Asian woman, and also talk about her experiences as a woman, and like mainstreaming things like her pregnancy and miscarriage and like other things like that, and then also just be like one of the funniest stand-ups of all time.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to? Okay.
You guys took all mine. But I did actually just saw Hassan Minaj's Netflix comedy special, and man, that was good. Like, not just like comedically, but the drama that he had, talking about like his family and his experience, and then being able to flip, like getting laughs off of like moments where he was like almost close to tears. I also have to say, Key and Peele, like I loved Key and Peele, like stuff like that makes me feel like gooey and warm inside, because it just feels so funny and like cathartic. I once saw Keegan-Michael Key in an improv show at IO West like years ago, and the range of characters that he did just like in one like 15-minute set, it was just like amazing. So yeah, so Keegan-Michael Key and Hassan Minaj is what I got.
Can I say one more?
Insecure is great too.
Yeah.
Insecure is great.
And also, truly, and this is not a plug for the show, but it is a plug for the show. Like a lot of the like people that have been on the show and come through the show, especially like people who are not as well known or who are like newer in their careers. It's like really cool and inspiring to see them and like
At Asian AF?
Yeah, at Asian AF at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater on Sunset Boulevard. But it's just really cool, and like you see so much talent, and you're like, hey, why aren't you on a TV show? Hey, why don't you have an hour special on Comedy Central or wherever they have stand-up specials?
Oh, I have two more. This is Superstore does a great job. I like all the characters on Superstore as far as a comedy. I'll give a shout out to 13 Reasons Why, which I got to be a part of. It's a kind of a dark show, but the way that show was cast, it was based off of a book, and it wasn't written necessarily ethnically diverse, but the way that they cast it was. And it's doing really well.
Oh,
Blackish and Fresh Off the Boat, awesome shows, especially because it's like that, you know, classic family experience. So you like, but you don't like these shows? What, you don't like families? Like,
What are you talking families, man?
there's families everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, one show that I really loved this past season was The Good Place on NBC. Very diverse cast, and Manny Jacinto, who is Filipino Chinese, is one of the main characters of that show, and actually did Asian AF last month, I think, month or 2 months ago. Yeah, I mean, lots of good content out there now that are trying to, work harder at being more inclusive and more diverse, and just like lastly, Asian AF, you see all of these great people who are on stage and who are, like I said, South Asian, Southeast Asian, East Asian, and mixed race, and all come from a very different experience and it's a great place to kind of feel a sense of community, immediate community. Yeah.
Yeah, one last question, Phil.
4 minutes,
Sorry for
3
jumping in
minutes.
So I was wondering, like, what are some ways beyond coming to the show that we can support people who are in the creative industry? Because, oh, for sure.
Would you like our PayPal?
Fix
Sure.
Zach's email?
Google Wallet.
Yeah, well, I work on YouTube, so unfortunately I can fix YouTube stuff. But like for people like us who are at home with 2 small kids, it's hard for us to get out.
Sure.
I mean, we
Oh,
can
sure.
follow people's Facebooks, Instagrams. I've heard when casting directors will look at people's Instagrams, see how many followers, like the community, subscribe, other kinds of things that we could possibly do.
Sign those kids up too.
Okay.
Have them follow us too.
Sure.
I think you hit on a lot of it, like the idea of like supporting people online. If you can't make it out to a show, like obviously supporting people's like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. It feels funny to be like, hey, follow me. But yeah, at Zac Oyama on either. And yeah, like there for Asian AF in particular, like I know I know they spend a lot of money trying to make sure that the show is recorded in a way that looks good and take pictures that look good, and that costs money. And I know is it a Kickstarter or some kind of thing that like there's ways to support financially if you want. And like even just like if you see something you like that's like has Asian talent in it, you can share that. Like even if like you're not the type of person to share things online, like maybe support that in that way.
Yeah, in terms of like the show specifically, we haven't put any of our content online just yet. Hopefully soon, but we do have a PayPal that is accepting donations. If you go to asianafshow.com, you can always let us rent this space for free. You guys have so much room here.
It's
We need room for an idea lab.
Yeah, where's our idea lab?
Guys,
We need to workshop some stuff.
We're just trying to figure out like it would be helpful if we could all surf today.
Yeah.
guys, you have the resources.
You have everything.
Use it. No, but yeah, there's donations are a great way for us to kind of keep the show alive, and the donations that we've gotten also pay for New York too, and shout out to Google New York for letting us we were just in New York last week, and they showed us around, and they're very supportive of the show, and they came out to the Asian AF New York show and stuff. So. But yeah, hopefully we'll get more content out in the internet. But
I would say also like this is a little bit more involved, but like if you do see like on TV, you see like you're watching TV and like a co-star or a guest star is an Asian person of color that you think is funny, look them up on IMDb, then find their YouTube.com, their social media, find them on there. But like a lot of people create their own content, so although you might see them from a TV show, you might see them on YouTube, you might see them listed even just on the lineup for Asian AF or something like that, like so often they have their own content. And I think it's important to like, support that, share that, truly the internet, google.com. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else?
I think also, and you said you're a father, right? So just, allowing like maybe your kids just to like, support them and let them be creative in their own voice. Maybe even reach out to your local Asian community. I know we've done the Comedy Festival that you will also helps produce, and that's like an all Asian comedy festival they've had a couple years. That was at the Japanese American Cultural Center. Like, reach out to those communities and be involved with them, and be like give the young people the freedom to express their voice as an Asian, as a person of color. Just allowing them to be like, you fit in, you belong here. You may not see yourself up there yet, but you are here, so you do exist, and help them be seen.
So can we get a commitment from you that you will? This is like your children becoming artists. Oh, okay.
We'll add them to
Asian
the
AF
lineup.
2035.
But the most serious thing that really though is we want to use this space. So someone here must have some power to make this happen.
Let's talk.
Throw any key at us.
Because then we'll practice and we'll do our shows here and then you guys can just watch it for free.
Yeah, as we know in Google, you want everything to come to you.
Yeah.
So bring the show here.
But first we need to figure out Zach's email situation.
I'm all lost.
Yeah.
Gmail.com.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, Kay, Keiko, Will, Zach. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause.